As a kid, I aspired to be a hopeless romantic, and it didn't come as a big surprise to any of my friends when I fell hard my senior year of college for a poetry major named Kimberly. Her poems, to me, had this profound depth to them, so much so that no matter how many times I read them, they never made any sense to me. But after 6 months of what I would consider tenacious wooing, I was still mired deep in the friend zone, and so I plotted a grand romantic gesture for Valentine's Day. And on the day before Valentine's Day, I acquired the keystone to my plan, and that was a ladder. And not some hoity-toity $300 Werner extension ladder from Home Depot, but the ladder of a hopeless romantic who didn't realize that ladders were so expensive. But what that meant was that I spent 4 hours in mid-February in the forests of Lewiston, Maine, selecting a 10-foot tall, 6-inch thick rotted tree that I then rocked back and forth until it uprooted, and then I broke off all the limbs and hammered them back into the sides as rungs. I'm not claiming it was OSHA compliant, but I was still pretty proud of myself. Later that night, I dragged this monstrosity across town to Kimberly's off-campus apartment and stared up at her second-floor window at 2 o'clock in the morning because I wanted to surprise her, which I did. I threw a couple snowballs at the window, the light went on. She came over, opened it up, looked out, and said in a loaded but ambiguous tone, "Keith?" "Stay there," I said as I stabilized my siege pole against the wall, and I took my only other prop, a single red rose, and placed it in my teeth. As I began to climb, every single rung creaked threateningly as if to say, "Dude, what are you doing?" But I made it to the top, and having severely underestimated the height of this window, I was forced to balance pretty much on the tip top of a dead tree. I clung to the windowsill with one hand. I took the rose from my teeth. I looked up into her eyes, and I said, "Hey," as if I was surprised to see her there. And she didn't respond, but honestly, at this point, I'm fine with that because I'm just happy she hasn't shoved me off my perch like I'm Bran Stark. So, but I calm my nerves, and I just say, "You deserve a special Valentine's Day." And I go to give her that perfect rose that I had picked out, only to discover that somewhere in this misadventure, the flower had fallen off the stem. And so I hand her a cold, thorny twig to articulate the bounty of my feelings. She reaches down and takes it from my fingers with the gentleness of someone taking a handgun away from a loved one who's gone temporarily insane. But then, after that, she closes her eyes, and she holds it with 2 hands underneath her nose, and she breathes in the most magnificent flower that ever wasn't there. And she smiles from ear to ear, and when she opens her eyes, she gives me this look of tenderness that says to me that she's moved and that I'm sweet and that it's time for me to go home now and that we will never be more than friends.